This is Miles Anthony Williams, and I'm here with JustHek on Just Another Podcast.
Ooh, that was smooth. That was smooth. I like that.
All right.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, I am JustHek, and I bring to you my special guest, Miles Anthony Williams of Righteous Music Media. Am I right with that?
Yes, indeedy.
Okay, Righteous Music Media.
Yo, it's a mouthful, bro. And
No.
that URL is mad long. I'll be like, when I give out that email address, I'll be like, yo, type it once and save it.
Yeah, no, for real. Yeah.
You know, and it's funny the way that we came up with the name. I had a business partner. His name was Rob.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he was Righteous, and I'm Miles, and I was
Mm-hmm.
music. And we were like, yo, we want to incorporate a media company. So instead of saying Righteous Music and Media, we just said Righteous Music Media. You know what I mean? And then we just ran with it. We ran with it.
No, that Righteous Music Media. That's perfect. And it's awesome. I love the logo, by the way.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it.
It's good.
Funny. I opted for my Muhammad Ali shirt. I was going to wear the Righteous Music shirt, but I was like, yeah, that's a little bit OD or whatever. I was like,
listen,
you know
man,
what
I
I'm
have a Just Another Podcast floating up, right?
Yo, I love that. You got to teach me how to do that with my logo so I could get one of those virtual backgrounds for me, like for real.
I got you. Not a problem.
Like, yo, how do I do that? 'Cause every time I do a Zoom call, usually I put in the, I'll be like, yeah, man, I'm down in Aruba right now. You know, that virtual background of the beach and the palm trees.
Yeah, I was kind of, when I did this, I was kind of like, I had it like behind me, and I'm like, well, I want people to like just see it. Yeah. I get a lot of compliments on it.
Yeah, no, it looks dope because, like looking at it, the J and the A is a microphone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm looking at that. I'm like, yo, it's fly. It's fresh, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I have to talk to you about that, too.
I mean, we can talk. We definitely talk. But today's about you. Today's about you.
JustHek.
It's just about you. Today's all about you, brother. So today, want to get into who is Miles Anthony Williams. Your life. You definitely got a couple stories, at least one that I really hope that we can get into. So let's get into first of who is Miles Anthony Williams? I know that everybody gets a little stumped by that question, and then once they get it, because all you guys know who you are. You guys are amazing. Everyone I've had on this show and everybody that I'm gonna have on my show, they're all amazing. But definitely,
I appreciate that, man. Yo. Whew. Because I'm thinking back, like that's a real deep question. And like, to really have to answer that, it's like, a kid who is, born and raised in Harlem. But I say born and raised in Harlem, right? But people always check me on that for several reasons. My mother sent me to live in South Carolina when I was like a little kid.
Right.
So I remember going to school in South Carolina. I came back here when I was like 4. You know what I mean? And then when I was 4, that was when Harlem started, like when I started living in Harlem. And then by the time I was 11, I got shipped off to school in Massachusetts, and after I got shipped off in Massachusetts, then I went to school in Connecticut. And then back to Harlem. So, and then even in between all that, I had a stepfather who was Jamaican. And, even though I'm not born Jamaican, I consider, my Jamaican relatives because we grew up together. But I also had the Jamaican lifestyle of being shipped to Jamaica for the summer. So it was,
nice.
It was like being shipped to South Carolina to all your elderly aunts.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or being shipped to Jamaica, playing in gullies and all of that, picking mangoes from the tree.
Oh, that's beautiful though.
Yeah, man, killing lizards with machetes. Yo, it was wild. You know, watching Rastas. You know, when I think back, man, it was so crazy because I used to watch Rastas. I mean, true Rastas, man. Like, take a brown paper bag and, you know, sit there and roll this gigantic lift. You know what I mean? With a brown, that was their rolling paper. You know, man, I used to see this stuff when I was growing up. You know, and I remember being in Jamaica, you know, during, you know, Bob Marley's time and being exposed to Bob Marley and appreciating Bob Marley back then, you know, but of course now the world appreciates Bob Marley, right? And, but I remember just being in that vibe and that element, you know what I mean? So I guess to like, you know, just sum it all up, like, you know, Miles Anthony Williams is like this diverse individual who has this life experience that's kind of like worldwide. I didn't really get into like, you know, being shipped off to schools, but, you know, it's a worldwide experience, you know? So, and that's what makes me who I am today. Sometimes, you know, understood, sometimes misunderstood, but it's not, you know what I mean? I'm like, like, give me an example. So you see I have locks, right? You know, there are tons of people that always walk up to me and be like, yo, where can I get some weed? I don't smoke, yo. I don't smoke. Because I got locks. You know? Right. That's what I mean. It's not, you know, it's not necessarily what you get.
It's a misconception.
Yeah, man. It's that crazy stereotype. You know, and sometimes it makes me laugh, man. We all do it. We all stereotype. So, I mean, sometimes when I remember a long while ago, I used to walk down the street and look at people and make up stories of what I thought they were. Just like, you know, just because. Like, oh, wow. She looks like she, or he looks like he, you know. You never know. You never ask them. You just make up the story and walk past them. You know?
Hey, listen, it could always be worse.
Another story, I remember I was in the hospital one time when I was like maybe 15. I had to have a throat operation or whatever. And I remember the nurse came in one time. It was so crazy. The nurse, and it was one of those typical blonde hair, blue-eyed, voluptuous, like fantasy nurse that came in, and she was like, excuse me, are you black or are you white? I was like, the fuck? Like, what kind of question is that? I was like, you know, I'm black. Oh, because sometimes you look black and sometimes you look white. Like, those were her exact words. I was like, oh, okay. But then I remember I had a Puerto Rican roommate who didn't speak English. And he would, like, you know, his family or whoever, his visitors would come in, you know, and talk, and they would always walk up to me and speak Spanish, right? And then it got to a point where I was just like, oh my God, here they come again. Let me act like I'm asleep. You know what I mean? But then one day, like these two females came and they looked great. I was like 15 years old. They looked great. And it was like, excuse me, can I ask you a question? They was like, are you Puerto Rican?
Yes.
And I looked at them and I was like, yep. I don't speak Spanish. Spanish in the bud. Like, don't start talking Spanish to me. Yeah, I'm Puerto Rican. And she was like, see, I told you he was Puerto Rican. Give me my money. I was like, damn, I just lied on a bet.
Oh my God. They watch this on YouTube or they hear it. They'll be like, oh my God, give me my money back. With interest. Yeah, with the interest. With the interest.
Right, that's that dude.
$15 then is like $40 now. So I want my money back. Miles is funny.
Man, I'm telling you. But I will tell you, last Saturday morning, to stay on the Spanish, I got an Uber driver, a female Uber driver, that did not speak English.
That's awesome.
And I was kind of proud of myself because we had a conversation the whole ride. I was holding my own, and she was asking questions. She was asking me questions. I was like,
nice.
I guess I'm not that bad. I guess I got a little something.
Miles Davis is bilingual, y'all. Just so you know.
But yo, this is what I tell him. I say, háblame muy despacio, which basically means speak to me.
I know what it means.
Oh, you know?
I know what it means.
Right? So then,
no, I don't speak, but I can understand.
You understand? I'm like, háblame muy despacio. That way I let them know that if you talk to me slowly, we can get this rocking. Just let's do it. Tell me if you understand this one. Because I tell everybody I used to do this on the subways back in the day. I used to read, because I was in love with like the Spanish language. So I was always trying. The only reason I stopped was because in class, they gave us a libro to read, right? A book. And it was like this thick. And I remember it took me like 3 hours to read one page. I was like, yo, I can't do this. Like, this is crazy. So in order to keep my like Spanish up, I used to like, read the signs on the subways in New York subways. And then of course, when you read them over and over, you start to memorize them. And the one that I memorized the most was Las cucarachas entran.
I remember that billboard. That's a throwback.
Absolutely. There was another one I used to read but it was preparation H, and it was like estoy sentada al 12 horas al día. Like, that's my accent to it, but it was like, but I don't remember the rest of it, but I remember that part of it. You know what I mean?
It's good. It's good. I don't know. My accent, when I attempt to speak Spanish, it's lost. It's lost. Because I grew up around Black people. So, like you got shipped off to tropical island of Jamaica. I got shipped off to Long Island and then was grilled in the ways of being Black. So it was what it was. And then, like I can remember speaking Spanish as a child. And then the more I kept getting shipped off to be with my grandfather's family, because my mother's she's not even half Black, although she holds up her end of the culture, but she is like okay, so she is half Black from her father, but she's also like a quarter Puerto Rican and a quarter Italian, because my grandmother was half Italian, half Puerto Rican.
Right.
So, but she learned fluent Spanish. My father's Dominican, and then I got all the rest of the Black, Italian, all that stuff. If I did a genealogy, it would probably short circuit because I'd probably have a whole bunch of stuff going on.
You got to go get that 23andMe
going. I don't know if it would work. Yeah. But if you could tell us about your childhood, your early upbringing, because I always felt like that was awesome in a sense.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, it was crazy. Like the South Carolina thing, living there for a minute. Then coming back and like starting to base really in Harlem, man. And, Harlem in the 70s, which was like the heroin, Nicky Barnes, all that era, you know what I'm saying? Nicky Barnes, like spot was across the street from where I grew up.
Really? What was that like?
I mean, as a kid, man, it's not like today. Like kids don't go outside today, right? I'm gonna tell you straight up. Back in the day, if you couldn't go outside,
you lost your mind.
My mother, because also, back in the day, down south they used to beat you with switches. But it's funny. My mother stopped giving me spankings. The first time she put me on punishment, I begged her to spank me. Because when you on punishment, you can't go outside. Ain't nothing going on in the house. All your friends outside. I don't know if you ever see those memes where there's like a bunch of bicycles and they were like, this is how you knew where your friends were back in the day. You ride up and you see a whole bunch of bicycles, like, oh, everybody here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that type of thing, man. So,
definitely.
So that was the Harlem era. You know what I mean? It was, man, the Harlem era was cool. And then I got shipped off to Massachusetts in a small little rural town in Massachusetts called Deerfield. Ironically, that's that's where the Yankee Candle Company is located in Deerfield, Massachusetts. I found that out by reading it. It was like, oh, snap. But it wasn't there when I was there. You know, it came afterwards or whatever. And then that was a well-rounded, I call it a social education, because when I was there, I basically went to school with people from all over the world.
Nice.
Like all over the world. It's funny, you know, people get funny when you're in a group of people and all of a sudden they start speaking Spanish and you don't understand and they get mad, this, that, and the other. But the way that I grew up was I was around international kids and they spoke their languages all the time. It's just like, that's what they do. It's easier for them to speak in their native tongue and sometimes harder to just, you know, speak. And that's what you do when you're around people that you're comfortable with, you speak your language or whatever. So that was like my middle school years, and then my high school years I was in Connecticut. And you know, I played a lot of sports, you know what I mean? Which gives me a competitive edge, which is why I never quit. You know what I mean? Because it's just like sports to me is a very integral part in like growing up. Like there's so many like valuable lessons to be learned in playing sports. Teamwork, you know, how to be a winner, how to be a loser, you know, like all that kind of stuff. But
what sports did you play?
Oh man, funny man. I played soccer, which is why I appreciate the sport. You know, soccer is not really an American thing, as you know, but
it's awesome. I got into soccer outside of gym, because we, you know, PE, whatever. It wasn't until the 2004 World Cup, I believe, that I really came to appreciate the sport. But it may have been 2006. It's one of those where Brazil was like really heavily favored. They had Ronaldo and Ronaldinho, and they were stacked. They were loaded. And it was just watching. It was just amazing, you know. And like a one zip game, that's the best game, because those.
You know, as Americans, right? People don't appreciate a one zip game.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They want it to be like, you know, football or like basketball, you know, where it runs up. But when you play, and it's funny you mentioned Brazil, because as being like one of the only Black kids, you know, playing soccer. Back in the day, you know, my number was 10. And the reason why my number was 10 is because of the great Pele.
Okay.
You know, Pele was number 10, Brazilian. He was Black. You know what I'm saying? So whenever I got on the team, number 10, Pele, yo, give me the Black guy's number or whatever. You know? I don't know. You know, so yeah, man, it was, so I played soccer, and then of course I played basketball. And then I got confused. I had a really good friend here in New York. We went to elementary, and he was a baseball player. He got like a full ride to Appalachian State for baseball. Like he played baseball so much, we knew that's what was going to happen, right? We were playing baseball. And I played baseball by default because I always hung out with him, but baseball really wasn't my thing. And I tried playing baseball in school, and then it just didn't click with me, so I switched over to track. You know what I mean? The individual sports or whatever. And I excelled in track. You know, in middle school, I excelled in like the high jump, you know, breaking the school record. And in high school, I excelled in long jump. And I was a New England champion 2 years, my junior and my senior year in long jump. So yeah, man, I excelled in you know, but I didn't really take it seriously. I didn't have an ego. You know what I mean? Like, it was so crazy. So from my sophomore to my junior year, I remember being at the sports banquet, and they're announcing, they're like, this guy, you know, from one year to the next, they're just talking about some dude, and I'm just listening, right? He's like, from one year to the next, he's improved the most. And, you know, he didn't lose a meet all year. You know, he won every single meet that he was in. And I'm sitting there like, who the fuck they talking about? Like, straight up, like, that's how, like, no awareness of I just did what I did. You know what I mean? And they were like, the most valuable or most improved player, I can't remember, was one of them, is Miles Williams. And I was like, Yo, the first thing that came to my mind was, I didn't lose all year. That was the first thing out of everything. I was like, I didn't lose. And that was a gift and a curse because my senior year.
Gunning for you.
And I'm aware that I never lost. Right? Now I'm aware. That's the worst, to be aware of it. You know what I mean? Because now you got something to protect, right? But it was also one of my most valuable lessons that I carry with me to this day.
Which is what?
So my junior year, me and this dude went back and forth, and I won. But now I got to face the same dude my senior year, right? So, all right. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. I jump, right? Boom, I get whatever. He jumps. He beats me. I'm like, all right. I jump. I beat him, right? And then he jumps, right? He jumps some shit I ain't never seen. So then my next jump, I jump, right?
Yeah.
I don't catch him. And track is psychological. He goes, when it's his jump, he goes, I pass. I was like, this motherfucker. Now I'm like, because I didn't catch him. Right? So it's like you get 3 jumps and then you get 3 more jumps if you want them.
Right.
So now I jump. I ain't catch him. His turn comes around. I pass.
So he just, he's messing with you.
So then my last jump, I jump and I know I got him. I faulted. My toe over the line. My first time in 2 years, I lost, right? Now I'm moping around. I'm like, here's the lesson. My coach, he looks at me. He goes, I'm sitting on the grass and I'm just like picking the grass. I'm all in my feelings. The grass. He was like, yo, what's wrong with you? He was like, so what? Like, he's aware. So what you lost? You got another event. That's not what it's about. You bounce back. You got another event to do. So get your ass up and bounce back. I was like, okay. But that was one of the lessons. I was just like, wow. So when I talk about like never quitting, right? And like just taking that lesson, because it devastated me. It was the first time I lost in 2 years, right? But so what? You got to get that dirt off your shoulder. You know, you bounce back. So what? That's part of it. You win some, you lose some, right?
Yep.
But I wound up winning the championship that year. Only because we didn't jump against that guy.
Oh man, that guy, listen, it's one of those things where he's got it out for you. He had to beat you.
Yep.
And then, you overlook the next person and he probably learned a lesson on his own because you got to beat everybody. But that's dope. That's dope. So tell me.
But then even to flip it to like after high school, because I stopped there. When I went to UConn, so I'm a crazy UConn fan for so many different reasons.
Okay.
UConn was kind of like a grounding place.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like when I was at UConn, we weren't the sports dynasty that they are now.
Right.
We were at the beginning of that happening. Gino Auriemma was the girls' coach when I was there, but the girls were not really that good. I don't know what he did. What
he didn't get girls from Connecticut,
right? And you know what? That's true because there was a girl who was like the number 1 person in Connecticut. Like she had numbers like she scored 100 points a game. Her name was Tracy Liss, L-I-S.
I remember.
And she wound up playing for Providence, right? But her sister used to go to UConn. And me and her sister were actually kind of tight. As a matter of fact, that clip you're talking about, When We Fall, I was telling you about, that's Tracy Liss's sister.
Oh, okay.
And that's who we actually did it to. So when you see that, all that, that's who that is.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a shoo-in. Like she was supposed to go to UConn and Gino did not go to UConn. She wound up at Providence. So yeah, man. Very true. So UConn was a good place. That's where I got into media. You know, I was a communications major. You know what I mean? I remember trying to pick my major. So I really wanted to be an actor, but that's a whole nother story. But that got diverted. And then I was sitting down saying, what do I love to do the most? And I was like, I love watching TV and listening to music. And I was like, yo, is there a major for that?
Production.
Yo, somebody said, yeah. I said, what is it? They were like, communications. I was like, that's my major. That's my major. You know, and at that time, it's funny because UConn was not like a great communication school at that time. So you really just did any and everything that you did. And you and I have had this conversation. I took my first editing course at UConn. Because remember, you know, right now I'm like, I'm never editing or whatever. I'm like, I'm never doing it. So yeah, I got into communications. I was a DJ on the radio, like the radio station up in Stores.
College radio.
Yeah, college radio, man.
I told my wife that Stores was the capital of Connecticut, even though I know it's not. Right. I say, yeah, Stores is the capital. She's like, no, it's not, because she went to University of Hartford.
Oh, so she went to UHart.
Yeah,
so she went to musician. That's a big music school.
No, she ended up doing. What was your major, babe?
Communications. It's a personal communications.
It's personal communications.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, UHart, man. That's where Vinny Baker went.
Vin Baker, yeah. Vin Baker.
Yeah, I know you know that.
Vin Baker.
He was a big deal back then. Huge at UHart.
Yeah. He was big in Milwaukee too until they traded him to Seattle. But
absolutely, see, look at you. I knew
again with the whole other stories.
So after that, you know, I basically did everything that I could at UConn when it came to like communication. It was a big thing. Wanted to get into radio when I got, you know, down to New York. Wound up in television. You know what I mean? Working in TV. You know, doing like camera and stage managing, everything TV, commercial playback, you know, tape playback, you know, anything that had to do. And I wound up in audio because at the time I was like singing in music groups and stuff like that after school. Joined a couple of singing groups and we were trying to get our, who were the groups? We were trying to get our new edition at the time before Boys the Men, you know, and then the girls group, like, you know, hitting us TLC, Jade, Changing
Don't
Face.
Walk Away.
Don't Walk Away.
That was it.
Yeah, my good friend Tammy Lucas wrote Use Your Heart.
I know who Tammy, I've heard that name in the industry.
Yeah.
Tammy Lucas.
Tammy Lucas is well, if you watch the Drink Champs, I'll tell you a couple of reasons. Tammy Lucas was the girl who wrote and sang I can't. Are you serious, Miles? I sing Tammy's song all the time.
I've heard that name though.
Is it good to you? Oh my God.
Oh, is it good? She's the vocal on that.
Yeah.
That's with Heavy D.
Well, she's right, but she also had her version. Like
right. Yeah.
And she's also the voice. Some people don't know. She's also the voice on Nori's Super Thug.
Yeah.
Girl.
What? Yeah, that's right. Her. Yeah, because Pharrell used it. It was in the back, like within the beat, you could hear her.
So Pharrell. So she basically, if you saw the Drink Champs, the recent Drink Champs with Pharrell, he talks about Tammy through the whole thing because she basically, you know, he said it in Drink Champs that she was the one that told Teddy Riley to pay attention to them. And he also says in that Drink Champs that he was also the one that taught him how to write songs.
That's dope.
So
Yes, he did. Yeah, that's funny. It's funny how the world works because it's funny how this name comes up. And I watched that Drink Champs episode, not the entire thing because some of his interviews. So I love Nori's Drink Champs was one of the podcasts that I looked at when I was thinking about creating this, right? And so I love the energy. I don't know about his interviewing skills, but I love his energy. I think he focuses in on what he wants to, but for the most part, like if he's got a thought in his head, it has to jump out.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it's interesting. But it's also a little it diverts a little bit, but it's Nori. You don't go on that show, for award-winning interviewing. You know what I'm saying? You go on there to get some free booze and to tell some stories, and it is what it is. It's great though. But it was.
Well, let me tell you why I love it. I love it because he is truly a fan.
Yeah, of course.
Not only was he like an artist, but he was a fan of like all these artists that he was around. You know what I mean? And he basically, so yeah, sometimes it diverts that thought that comes out and they might not get back to what you're on the edge of your seat waiting to get that answer.
Right.
But to me, that's okay. It's like, oh man, next time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When he watches it back, he'll see.
Yeah. But I wanted to talk because it's funny how the world works, right? And if you could divulge, because I want to ask you this question in hopes that it diverts to that story. Okay. I want to ask you this question.
Okay.
And, you answer it however you feel.
Gotcha.
I know that you grew up with your mom, right? And I know that there was tell us about what growing up in your house, because your mom was a single parent. Explain how that was, and then, you get into however.
Yeah, so my mother left my father when she was like 6 months pregnant. She was out. She's like, peace, deuces, I'm out of here.
Okay.
But I did know my father, like, you know what I mean? And then, of course, when she like, there's this picture that I have of them, and they were like on a boat ride or something. And she was like, yeah, that's what my friends used to tease me and say I was dating my husband. Because even though she left, they still got together and hung out. They still did the back and forth thing. So after they finally finished, the divorce and all of that, I got a stepfather. So the stepfather is who I predominantly grew up with. But, it's interesting when you're a little kid, and I think it happens to a lot of, kids of color. When you're little, you're innocent, you're cute. I want to help you, oh, you're a cute kid. But as you get older, all of a sudden you're a threat. This is something that changes in the things. You're no longer the cute kid or anything like that. Like I think I told my 19-year-old one time, I was like, listen, older people want to help young kids. So get on it while it's done. I said, because there's going to be a time in your life where nobody is going to want to help you. You know what I mean? So you have to take advantage of your opportunities now. So my mom was like, she wasn't a single mom, but she might as well have been. But, I'm an only child too, right? So she put like all of her up until my brother, actually. And then that's how it'll segue. So I'm my mother's only child, and I grew up as an only child. And she put everything into me. Like she sent me to the greatest schools, all that kind of stuff,
It's awesome.
Yeah, like, and she's still around. She just celebrated her 81st. You know what I mean? And I looked at her, I was like, damn, you 81? You know what I'm saying? Like
how old was she when she had you?
Nah, see, then you're gonna leave me to tell me my age, because then people will do the math.
Okay, fine.
She could have either had me mad late,
okay,
or she could have had me mad early. Right? I could be the Gen X.
That's it, yeah.
No, it's all good. She definitely threw everything like into me, whatever, and so that was kind of like how I grew. She was a dominant force or whatever. And I had like a lot of her male friends, as role models, more so, who took the time and put energy into me and all of that thing. And like I said, my I don't even call him my step uncle, but my Jamaican uncle, who was like my man.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the people that I had that were just immersed in me, So yeah, it yo, man, it was such an interesting, when I think back, like just sitting here, like reflecting on it, I had like this hodgepodge of like just stuff
experiences
to me, man, like from all over the world, which is, part of like, I realize racism and all that stuff, it exists, but it's stupid to me. You know what I mean? I'm just like, it's so dumb because we're just like all humans, right? You know what I mean? But don't get it twisted. I'm not saying this as like, oh, I'm not aware. Trust me, I'm very aware. And trust me, I know like when it comes down to it, where I stand. You know what I mean?
Of course.
But growing up as an only child was really wild because like all of my friends became like my brothers and, sisters. And, I still have friends from elementary school from when I was in Harlem, like people I could call up right now. And we've known each other since we was like 6 years old.
That's dope.
And we see, when we run into people and it's just like, yo, I know you, boom, boom, boom. I saw a dude the other night. I was on my way out and we looked at each other. He was like, Miles? I was like, Rich? We knew each other growing up in Harlem, 15 or whatever. But to segue into, because like I said, I didn't have any siblings until I did. I remember I think it was my grandmother, my father's mother, had passed away, and we were all like a thing, this, that, and the other. And I said to my mother, I was like, yo, how come I don't have a brother or sister? Like, and I'm maybe like 21, 22. It's like, how come I don't have a brother or sister? Yo, she looks at me, she goes, you do, ask your father. Like the first time I'm hearing this, I'm like,
leave it to Black people to drop news at the most awesome times.
I'm like, what the?
Awesome. Yes, at a funeral.
Yo, yeah, like, he's like, go ask your father. And I was like, I'm like, yo. I said, yo, I heard I got a brother or a sister. He was like, yeah. And he said, who told you that? I said, my mother. And they ain't say nothing.
So hold on. So is this at the funeral?
This was it was at like the repast type thing. Like,
wow, yeah, okay. Wow, yeah.
And then I was like, he said, who told you that? I said, my mother. And they ain't say nothing. I was like, well? He said, well, what? I said, do I have a brother or a sister? He was like, yeah. I said, yo, where's he? Like, I was like, well, what is it? He's like, you got a brother. And I said, well, where's he at? He was like, I don't know. And I'm like, yo. I said, well, what's his name? I was like, what's his name? And then he was like, Tahir Hemphill, right? And I was like, okay, boom. Yo, man, like a couple of months went by and I was like, fuck, what did he say my brother's name was? So now it was difficult pulling the shit out of him. Now I got to go revisit the shit, right?
Right.
So I said, yo, what'd you say my brother's name was? He said, Tahir Hemphill. You got that? I was like, yeah, I got it. Like I had to say it 1,000 times so I wouldn't forget it.
Right.
And then I went on like this mission, right? This mission to find like my brother. It wasn't like a strong mission, but like I remember I met these young girls. I used to go back to UConn and visit, and I met these young girls, and they're like, "Oh, my boy Tahir." I was like, "Tahir?" I was like, "Yo, ask Tahir. Boom, boom, boom. What's his last name?" Last name didn't match up, boom.
Yeah,
but if the first time, I'd be like, "Yo, let's do, is that him?" Was it him? So I'm walking around. I got this name right. So back in '97. I was at this party, like, how people get together, you kind of know people, you kind of don't. This girl was like, her name was Chandra. And she was like, yo, I'm going to London, blah, blah, blah.
Can I say something really quickly?
What's that?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the most favorite stories I've ever heard in my life. So just please listen, because I heard this story at this man's job and it just like I was envisioning this story in my head and it was just like, I just couldn't believe it. Like, it's one of my at least top 5 stories that I've ever heard in my life. Like literally, and I'm not even in it, but I was just like, Oh my God. Like, this is crazy. All right, continue, please, Miles.
Okay,
I
so remember,
apologize.
this is also 97 before social media.
Yes.
This is before social media. We barely got cell phones. You know what I mean? Like, we barely got them and they're changing or whatever. So I'm at this party and this girl, Chandra's like, yo, I'm going to London, and I kind of know her. Like, I see her at the party. Like, she's the friend of somebody and we go boom, boom, boom. She's like, yo, you want to come? And I was like, sure, why not? I was like, yeah.
Let's go to London.
She was like, yo, it's real cheap. Yo, it was so cheap, bro. It was like a round trip ticket for like $200.
Oh, wow.
From like Thursday to like Monday, Tuesday. It was like $200. I was like, I can't
You're never going to get that.
I can't not go. And I'd never been to London, this, that, and the other, right? So boom, I go get my ticket. Yo, on the day of the trip, she's like, oh, my friend Camille is coming. I'm like, who the fuck is Camille? Who's Camille? And then she's like, oh, she's my friend. She's flying in from Atlanta. You know what I mean? And so I met this girl, Camille, the day of the trip. So now it's me, Camille, and Chandra. We go to London, we're sitting there, people tell you, yo, my friend's out there, call this person. Boom, I had met this girl before that I knew who was in London. Her name was Kefri Riley. Okay. Me and her, like, basically we've reconnected on Facebook and all that kind of stuff. And she's a doula, out in California. She was a model, you know what I mean? She was a model back in the day. There's so many stories, man. Like, I remember she was on the Tyra Banks show, and she is the one who told Tyra Banks that she should actually be a model. Like, I saw her on the Tyra Banks show, and I was like, oh shit, that's Kefri. And then boom, it was like her and Tyra like grew up together, right? So when I'm in London, I'm asking people, yo, do you know Kefri? Like, I'm just asking random people, like, do you know Kefri? And I got this, she's like, yeah, I know her, but I don't know how to get in touch with her. I was like, oh man, whatever. So I'm going through London, blah, blah, blah. We're chilling, doing boom, 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 everything, blah, blah, blah. We take the Eurotunnel to Paris for one day. I'm in the room with two women, because in London, you could get like triples. There's 3 different beds or whatever.
Yeah.
Boom. So we're chilling. We go to Paris for a day. So I've been to France for like a day.
Wow.
You do whatever. On the way back, right? We're on the way back. We're on the plane, right? And we're sitting there and I'm talking to Camille, because now we kind of like, we got to know each other, whatever. And then I'm talking to Camille and she's like, yo, oh my God. We're talking and she goes, oh my God, you're so funny. You sound just like my boy Tahir. Yo, I fucking froze. I went, am I going to ask this woman? Like, that's a thought process. And I was like, yo. Yeah. I said, what's Tahir's last name? And she's like, oh, I don't know. He's got this magazine, called Red Clay or whatever. None of that shit means nothing to me. She digs in her bag. She pulls out his business card and she goes, Hemp Hill. And my face, what the fuck? I said, I was like, yo, do me a favor, man. When you, I said, yo, that might be my brother. And she was like, huh? And I was like, yo, do I look like him? And she was like, well, he's a good looking guy. I was like, did this chick just diss me? Like she said, like, so, well, he's a good looking guy. I was like, whatever. I said, do me a favor. When you go back to Atlanta, ask him if his father's name is Harold and if his mother's name begins with an S, right? So boom, she's like, okay, whatever, yeah, boom. So maybe like 2 days later, the other girl calls me, Chandra. Chandra's like, she's like, yeah, yo, you got to talk to Camille. She spoke to your brother. And I was like, well, how do I know that that's my brother? She's like, because the questions that you told her to ask him, he said yes. I went, wow. Okay, so cool. So now I talked to Camille. She's like, yo, here's his number, boom, boom, boom. I call him up. And I'm like, yo. He's like, yo. But I guess we brothers, huh? He's like, yeah, I guess so. So the story goes like, I knew about him, but he didn't know about me. So when Camille opened up that can of worms to him, he had to go ask his mom if it was true. Wow. You know what I mean? And his mom was like, yeah, you got a brother. Yeah.
That's insane.
Mom.
That's
you know
insane.
What I mean? So I didn't know. He didn't know about me. So he was like 2 weeks later, he was coming up for his birthday, and it also coincided with Mother's Day weekend, right? He gets up here. we decided to meet at this place called the Soul Cafe. When we see each other, we just start laughing. Like we just look at each other and we're like, oh, wow, I just start laughing. But we didn't really, it was like a meeting place. And he was like, yo, I got an art show that, I can go to. You want to go to an art show? I was like, yeah, I just picked a place to meet. Yeah, so we went to this art show. We wound up in this wrong gallery, down on like 22nd Street, 23rd, that area, whatever.
Yeah.
But that was when he introduced me to Jean-Michel Basquiat. Because when we went into the gallery, they had an original Basquiat.
Oh, my God.
And he was like, yo, he goes, is this a Basquiat? And they were like, yes. And they were like, I was like, who's Basquiat? So this is 97, right?
Right.
So we wind up, we go into the place, we go, and then we find the other art show. He introduces me to his family, because, yo, this is my brother. Here's where it gets good, right? So we're walking, we're talking, and just like, we're talking about, power, like a community, this, that, and the other, right? So he says, yeah, man, Amiri Baraka said, death to those who don't give back to their community. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, Amiri Baraka? I said, you saw Amiri Baraka? He was like, yeah. I said, like 2 years ago? He was like, yeah. I said, at Clark Atlanta University? He was like, yeah. I was like, yo, bro, I was there. He was like, what? I was like, yeah, yo, I was there. I was like, yo, my boy, his wife was going to Clark, and she was like, yo, Amiri Baraka's speaking. Do you want to go? And I was like, sure, why not? Boom. And I went to go see it. Boom, right? That was the first mind blown, right? So then we're talking this saying, like, in Harlem where I grew up, there's this place called Minnesink where all the kids in this neighborhood Minnesink. I'm the only kid that never went to Minnesink. He told me his mom.
It's on Lenox. It's on Lenox and
142nd. You got it.
142nd, yeah.
So that's where I grew up. I grew up in that neighborhood. So my neighborhood, right? So his mom used to ship him from Queens to go to Minnesink. I was like, damn, you used to be like right up the block from me? Like, we never knew that. So then boom. So then we talking again, right? I said, yo, man, this is crazy. I was like, when I went to London, I was looking for this girl, man, this girl named Kefri. You know what I mean? And he goes, Kefri Riley. And I was like,
I forgot about that. Oh my God.
I said, I don't know her last name. I know her name is Kefri. I was like, a black chick, blonde hair from LA. She's a model. He was like, yeah, Kefri Riley. I was like, yo, you know her? He was like, yo, when I was in London, I used to work with her and her roommate. I was like, so you basically. So then it started clicking back, right? When I was in London with Camille, she was like, yeah, my friend, like she's just saying, my friend keeps telling me I got to call this girl named Keffy, but it never clicked that she had the fucking number the whole time. Like, I'm asking random people like, yo, Keffy? He got the number. So boom. So I was just like, yo, so I'm like, yo, so you mean the girl that I met in New York, you lived with in London when you went? She's like, yeah, I stayed with them when I went to London because, small circle, poetry, all that kind of stuff back in the 90s when all that was popping,
Definitely.
Boom, boom. Yeah, man. Then my boy told me one day, right? My boy who lives in Atlanta, I tell him the same story I'm telling you.
Right.
He calls me up. But this is actually before I met my brother. This is before I met him.
Right.
He calls me up. He's like, yo. He's like, you ain't never going to believe this. I was like, what? He goes, yo, so I'm going to Staples. And you remember I was telling you there was one dude that I only messed with? There was only one dude who was cool, this, that, and the other, that I would only deal with him because he would get everything right. It's like, yeah. He's like, yo, I look at this thing and his name is Tahir. And he goes, yo, and I said to him, yo, you got a brother named Miles? And Tahir was like, yeah. So my man met him before I even met him and bugged out Tahir when it was all like, the story was just freaking bonkers. And then there's like a whole nother, story about, because he didn't know his father. And I took him and introduced him to his father for the first time, which I didn't know how that shit was going to go down. Like, I was like, yo, this is going to fight. How's this going down? Yeah. Yo, man, it went down like, hey, what's up? Hey, how you doing? Yo, long time. Like,
that's dope.
Yeah.
And that's such an amazing story.
Yeah.
I'm coming to notice that majority of my guests are like children of divorce or children of parent separation. So I kind of it's making me want to delve into like looking at, because I guess that's like the early trauma that propelled all of you guys to some sort of greatness, or to some sort of, you know, to that led you to whatever path that you went on, so to speak. Or at least, I mean, I don't know. It's weird because it's a trauma nonetheless. But it's interesting.
It's weird being an only child, man, because you know, I got another friend who's an only child, and he's a huge mix engineer in the music. Like, he mixed every major hit in the 90s back in the day, right?
Wow.
We talk about being an only child, hip hop hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
We call it OCS, only child syndrome. Like, that's what we always say. So his birthday was last week, and I put a note on his wall, and I was like, OCS, you know. And, yeah, man. But it's really interesting because I think
it's people of color. It's people of color majority, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You know, and I don't know whether it was like the 70s and 80s thing, or I don't know. It's interesting. The only person that wasn't a child was my very first guest. And technically her parents divorced. They divorced and then got back together.
Right.
And so I mean, it's an interesting thing that I'm looking at. Like, as I interview each person, I'm noticing that each person is kind of come from a single parent household, which is, I mean, it just is what it is. I guess it makes us who we are. Makes us, you know, in terms of strength wise.
Listen, it's for me, that's it was like I said, but because I had that duality of going back and forth or whatever, you know what I mean? It was also a very hard adjustment, like coming back to like being under a rule of whatever the case. But yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot to that for me anyway. And having that only child, you know, experience. And I still think like there's a lot of only child, like a lot of people who say only children are spoiled, this, that, and the other. I think there's certain things that I'm spoiled in, but not in the way that people actually think. They say only children are selfish. I think we're all selfish, you know, in our own certain ways. And, you know, sometimes selfish isn't a bad thing. You know, sometimes in order to get on course on what it is that you want to do, you have to be selfish to get yourself straight.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I mean? That sort of thing.
Yeah, you have to. I think it's important because I don't know, it's selfish when you're using yourself to put down someone else or to walk over somebody, right? Yeah. But it's not selfish if you think about, because you have to, I've been taught in my life, right? I've had different mentors throughout my life. You have to love yourself before you love someone else. You have to, you know, and so it's not wrong to love yourself. It's only wrong when you're like, you know, you're running away from a monster and you trip the person to get, that's when it's, you're like, listen, I'm sorry.
You pick them up and
they take them. That's when it's selfish. That's what it's like. But like, you know, there has to be a self-love, you know, like this is, to me at least. I used to preach that to young teens in high schools and junior high schools, where, especially in communities of color, that's a hard thing. It's a very hard thing. It's very hard to think about what the positives that you bring to the world, to the table, for us, because we grow up in negativity. It's, oh man, you know, it's the fight. It's survival of the fittest almost. Yeah. And it's a generational thing. I mean, at least now it's gotten a little bit better. I think the generation now, they're a lot better. They're more, I want to say they're definitely a lot better at processing what's wrong with them. And they're better, you know, like a lot of adults from my generation and the generation before, they're healing now. They're healing just now. Like they're just getting it together now. Whereas the youth nowadays, they're healing like in their teens to be better adults.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, you have to love yourself. I think that's important. And it's because if you don't love yourself, no one else is, especially in New York.
And it's funny. That's what I always tell about people about, like, you know, when it comes to that self-love, right? I'm like, yo, why are you lying to yourself? Everybody else is lying to you. Like, so you gonna lie to yourself too? Like, you know, and when I say everybody else is lying to you, meaning from the standpoint, it's like, you know, you meet people's representatives sometimes, right? Like they're representatives. Like you don't get the real person initially right away. You know what I mean? And that's just a blanket statement. So don't come at me, people. That's just like a blanket. Like you have to, you know, get into that. But I also think that the kids of today are more alert and in tune with like the older generation and what they don't want.
Right.
You know, I remember when the concept came of like kids like being like taking a job for like a week and quitting. Like, you got that job, yeah, I don't like that shit.
Yeah, right.
Wow. The fuck? I mean, it's like that. Yeah, it's like that. Fuck that. On to the next.
Right.
Like they have no, and it's real because that's like they have no commitment to something that doesn't have a commitment to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's flipping it. It's kind of like this whole thing with Robin Hood and GameStop and all of that, right? Like the commitment to the hedge funds and, you know, all of a sudden it got flipped on its shit and everybody's bugging out. They had the hearing today, you know, with Congress and all of that, and everybody's bugging. It's like, oh wait, you can do it to us, but we can't do it to you.
Right.
Nah, it's over.
Yeah.
That game is over, especially with this generation. That game is over.
Definitely.
They are loyal to themselves. And I remember when that first started happening, I couldn't, you know, grasp that concept because I'm from a different generation, but I embrace that concept like fully. You know what I mean? You dedicate yourself to, you know, you got to be true to self, like what we're talking about. You got to be true.
Definitely.
Sure.
So, Miles, tell me about Righteous Music Media and what that entails.
Righteous Music Media, man, that was birthed out of my love for music. You know, I mentioned about, you know, being in singing groups and stuff like that. And, you know, just over the years, you know, the first group was called For You. Then we had a group called, I had a group because there were different members, different times of the groups that I was. First one was For You. The next one was Business and Pleasure, which is, I laugh at that all the time because my man, you know, he had that name and he just had no clue. Like, I remember one time we did a show and we like dressed up in overalls with a button-down shirt and a tie. So it was like Business and Pleasure. Like we tried to do like little
gimmick.
Yo, when you look back, it's like that shit looks stupid as hell, right? And then the final group that I was in called Diverse, and that was actually the group that we got the closest. You know, there was this record label that was just starting up in 1996, and we were performing in Maria Davis's, you know, showcases at this club called Essos. And we were singing, warming up in the bathroom, and this dude was in there basically taking a leak. And this other dude that was in there with us, he was like, yo, y'all know who that is? He was like, a dude taking a leak? Like, right? He was like, yo, that's Damon Dash, the president of Rockefeller Records. And Rockefeller was just bubbling under because Jay-Z had, you know, Ain't No with Fox Brown. And it was So we were hearing it. And then he was like, yo, Dame, you like how they sound? He was like, yeah, you sound good. Yo, you managing? The dude lied. He was like, yeah, because he wasn't trying to miss an opportunity. Dame gave him the business card. And, you know, and they said,
after he washed his hands, right?
I'm in the moment. I'm like, yo, here's an opportunity. I don't care if they wash their hands or not, B. Yo, we about to get a deal. Like, yo, this dude, he got the power that he likes us. And Dame is from Harlem too, man. And Dame also has a very similar background to mine, you know, where he went away to school.
Right.
You know what I mean? And yeah, that story was crazy because next thing you know, it took a cut. Like our managers love him to death, but I called them like every day to get them to like, yeah, I was like, yo, we ain't got a demo. I was like, yo, just call the dude. As soon as they called them, we were in the office, you know, with a meeting. You know what I mean? Dame is a straight up dude. People hate on Dame, but Dame called up his lawyer at the time. It was Ossie and Woods. Both of them, you know, rest in peace. They both passed away. But he had them on the phone, on speakerphone, talking about, yo, I want to get a contract, you know. And it was like, yo, it was a demo deal, which basically is on the first right of refusal, all of that. And it's like, yo, we could get him for 90 days. He's like, yo, all I need is 5. Like, he wasn't trying to get us. He was just like, he wanted to put together a deal. He was interested in signing the group. You know, Jay was like the biggest thing in the group at the time. They had another group called Chris Jones.
Chris Jones, yeah, I remember.
Did my life go down?
That song sucked.
that was it. And then Rel was on that label.
Rel was dope. I like Rel.
Yeah, Rel was on the label. That was around the time that we were coming up. And you know, long story short, when
Streets is Watching soundtrack is when I first heard Rel, but they was like Rel been out for a minute. I never heard of him until the Streets is Watching. Which is around that time that they was probably trying to sign you, because I was 90. Well, no, Streets is Watching was 97, 98.
Yeah, we were done by that time. We were like, yo, because we met them literally, like when they gave us Reasonable Doubt, they gave me a promo copy. Like, oh yeah, here goes the album. Like I look around, I could find the promo copy somewhere. You know what I mean?
You could sell that for thousands of dollars, man.
Yeah, like I got Dame's business card like somewhere, like
wow,
or whatever. You know what I mean? And
you have treasures, bro.
Deal fell through. They were still on Priority at that time, and the deal fell apart when they switched over to Def Jam. So we got caught up in the middle of this. There was another woman, I forget her name, Michelle something. She was from Harlem. They were talking about signing her. She lived on Lenox Ave. So yeah, but I tell you all that story just to say that's how the birth of Righteous Music Media came, because I remember looking at MTV or BET, one of them, and I saw this group called 112.
Oh,
like, that's what they signed? I went in my high voice. I was like, I don't look like that no more. You started getting older.
Yeah.
Artists are starting to get younger.
Right.
And then it was just like, yeah. And then once that deal, you know, fell through, because that was the closest that we got. I used to carry the contract around with me for years. Be like, yo, see? Like, yo. But once it fell apart, it kind of killed the group. You know, even though after that we did the Apollo, we did an original song at the Apollo. We didn't get booed.
Wow.
You know? And that's like unheard of, to do an original.
Right.
Right. I remember it was Ray Chu? Ray Chu and was it Ray Chu? I don't remember. It was Ray Chu and Ralph Roll, who was a drummer that we knew. And I remember at that time they were like, yo, don't mess around and have a hit song on your hand and don't do nothing with it. You know, because they recognized that we did an original song and did not get booed.
Right.
You know, but we didn't win that night either. Some girl got up there and, like, at the time it was Biggie's Hypnotize or whatever, and she just went, and like crazy and got the crowd all hyped and all that.
It's all it takes. It's all it takes.
Yeah, and she won. But I remember a couple of weeks later, I was on my way to, it's funny how it's circling back. I was on my way to Martha's Vineyard for the first time, and this girl saw me, and she was like, yo, were you in the Apollo 2 weeks ago? And I was like,
wow.
Like, yeah. She's like, yo, y'all should have won. I was like, that really wasn't up to us. You know, y'all was supposed to help us win, but, you know, it felt good. But I say Martha's Vineyard because that was when Mike Tyson, Biddy Van is here. So you know, I was in Martha's Vineyard when
Circles around.
Circles around, you see what I'm saying? Then when I started to age out of, like, not looking like the people on TV, you know, I was like, yo, man, I met all these people. You know, people remember me. I remember people. You know, I've got all these contacts. How can I help others get to the point? You know, how can I help them achieve their dreams? You know, just help them. So it turned into a Righteous Music Media turned into like an artist management, you know, company. The media part, which my former partner, we're not partners anymore. We're cool, but we're not partners. You know, he was the media part. You know, we invested, bought like a a high digi camera back then, whatever the high model was back then.
Okay.
Yo, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, no,
just like Sony Red. Nah, we didn't get no Sony Red. You know what I mean? It's like, so whatever it was. And, you know, we just started working with artists, you know, and helping them get, but it was on an independent level, you know, and I was trying to do things independently because I wanted the majors to come, but that's when everything started shifting and changing. The internet started taking over. Things started going, you know, viral.
That artist empowerment now.
Yeah, but that became like a word. Like the first viral video I remember is Chocolate Rain.
Oh,
remember, like,
yeah, I remember that.
Getting like commercials,
yeah,
Dr. Pepper and all of that, like Cherry Dr. Pepper, and it was just like, what is happening? And then like William Hung was on American Idol. She bang.
Yeah.
Didn't have to sing no more. Like, it was all of a sudden, it was just like, oh, this has these followers and this, that, and the other. So things started shifting and, you know, just started adjusting to like the shift on how things were working because the old model was dying very quickly. You know what I mean? But that's how Righteous Music Media, you know, birth. I started a record label under that, you know, Righteous Music Records, put out an album with an artist, you know, that did fairly well. You know, I was doing it all myself, man. Had them pressed up. I was the manufacturer. I was a distributor. I would get like, maybe at the time you had to send them CDs.
Yeah.
I started to get to know the people at the post office and UPS. I was sending stuff to CD Baby. I was like direct orders.
CD Baby. Oh man.
I was getting direct orders from record stores in London. You know, and I was like, yo, it was crazy. I was running a label, so to speak, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trying to get, you know, the artists out there and be seen and all of that. And then that started to like do thing. And then this other artist came and then I signed her and, you know, she's a big actress now. You know what I mean? So.
Can you say her name or?
Oh yeah, her name is, when I was working with her in music, her name was Margot B. And now as an actress, she goes by her full name, which is Margot Bingham. Margot Bingham is
wow.
I don't know if you know Margot Bingham. Margot Bingham is her first really big role that introduced her was on Boardwalk Empire.
Yes, that's where I know her from.
Yeah, she played Daughter Maitland.
Yes.
Yeah, so at that time she was playing Daughter Maitland. She was signed to, you know, my company.
That is insane. Oh my God. I'm saying that's insane because so I watched Boardwalk Empire, right? I think it ended in like 2014 or something like that. I don't remember exactly when, but I remember I used to watch it, and then I was like running through it the other day because I have my own little like hard drive, and I have like all of my favorite shows that I've come to watch, and like I have like The Wire and all that stuff. And I just once in a while, I'll just go revisit a show that I just remember. I was like, yo, that show was fire or whatever. And there was an episode that she was featured in for like, I would say 20 minutes of it. And I was just like, yo, like, I was like, whatever happened to her? I was just wondering. And then you're bringing her name up and it's the universe. It's crazy, man. It's just.
Definitely. And that's a story you didn't know. Like,
right. I had no idea that you knew Margot Bingham.
Yeah. Like she, you know, she's originally from Pittsburgh and, you know, she came to New York and the other artist that I was working with, Darian, you know, performed at this place and that's how we met her. She walked up to Darian and she approached Darian about like, me managing her and they had some type of meeting and then that's how it happened. But the latest thing that when I spoke to her last year. I went to her last show that was going to be in New York because she got a role on The Walking Dead. You know what I mean? So whatever season this is, and I don't know if they're filming. I haven't spoken to her, but because remember everything stopped because COVID happened. So I don't know if they picked up production, but she's definitely on the next season of The Walking Dead.
That is amazing.
She was on a TV show called New Amsterdam.
Yes, you know, I've heard of it. I've not watched it, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, she was, and this is just stuff that I'm talking off the top of my head. She was in Barbershop 3, you know, the one with Nicki Minaj.
She was in Barbershop 3?
Yeah. So people Did you see Barbershop 3?
I did, but I don't remember it. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Well, she was the how do you say it? She was like the Daisy girl, like the one that was like that had the long braids, and she sat next to Nikki. You know what I mean? She actually hooked up with the guy in the end, or whatever the case, or whatever. But her acting career basically, took off. And she's doing.
Okay. Now I remember. Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely. That's awesome. That's dope. Yeah. She's a great actor. Dope.
Yeah, she's amazing. In Boardwalk Empire, that was her. You know what I mean? She was, and they put out an album, The Boardwalk Empire, and did a whole bunch of, but she did all the songs and everything in Boardwalk Empire. So she's an amazing singer, great singer.
So, Miles, this is a part where I give my guests their roses, so to speak. First and foremost,
trying to smell them, man.
First and foremost, I want to really credit you because you were one of the few people who kind of said to me, you should do your own podcast. Why not? You know what I'm saying? You would be great. You would be good. And I'm just like, there was a period where, and I think anyone who doesn't have some sort of self-doubt, you are either a sociopath or no, I'm just kidding. But I think it's human to have some self-doubt. And a lot of people, when I tell them I had some doubt, they're like, you? And I'm like, yeah, I did. Because this is all on me.
Yeah.
You were one of the people that I reached out to and I spoke to, and it was just like, no, you would be really good, and you should do it. You should give it a shot. Why not? Just give it a shot. Whatever, And I don't know, that was one of the confidence boosters that I needed to get this off the ground. And I feel like for where I'm at right now, for it to blow up, you called it. You were one of you and two other people that I know. You called it. You guys called it. You were like, no, it's gonna be good. Just do it and you'll see. And so I appreciate you for that. What I mean?
Thank you.
You've always, from the moment I met you at M&N, your energy was amazing. You had that voice. Your voice was what I remembered first because I was like, yeah, he's got a radio voice. This dude got that Kiss FM late night music. And it turns out you was making booty tapes, so you was always you always had the insight. But
thanks,
you're an amazing person, man. I appreciate you for just coming on the show. If always, I call you up and you give me your great insight into just how things are, just life in general.
Thanks, man.
Your success should not be a surprise because you're just one of those people that I know that you probably walk into a room and it just lights up. I mean, you just walk and it's just like, hey. But they'd be like, hey, there goes the Puerto Rican dude with the dreads, or
that's who got the weed.
Who's got the weed, apparently.
Got the weed. That's the weed guy. No, I actually had that happen, bro. I'm laughing. I walked into a recording studio. The owner of the studio comes in and goes, who's that? The weed guy? And I was the guest of the artist who was there. One of the artists that I know is, I know the husband of Leanne Womack, who's a huge country,
Sounds familiar. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, she's huge. Mm-hmm. So he invited me to a session, and the owner of the studio was like, "Who's that? The weed guy?" It's like, wow.
Thanks for the stereotype, bro.
This was what he said. He goes, "A black guy with dreads, and he's got a book bag." And after he said that, I went like this. I went,
"Okay, yeah, sure." There could actually be books in there,
right? But
with having people like you, you're part of my network. I mean, you guys, I've never reached out and asked you for anything other than this, but you're part of my network in the sense that I know that if push comes to shove and I need to call you to be like, yo, what do you think of this? Or, what do you, you'll give me your honest answer. And, you know, and it's just that, and it's just the positive energy. And I think it's important to surround yourself with people of positive energy, that are, you know, people that are just, you know, like no matter what they're doing, it's like, you know what, like there's just an understanding, or there's just a sense that, you know, you're gonna, whatever you do, it's gonna reap some sort of, there's gonna be a reward factor to it, or there's gonna be something that positive, amazing that comes out of it. Mm-hmm. And knowing you, all the people that you name dropped, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like, you know what I mean? It's amazing. It's fucking amazing. And I can say fucking because I'm an adult, you know, my YouTube is adult. Every week I always say, they keep sending me emails, and they'll probably send me an email about this, but whatever.
Oh, was I not supposed to curse? Because I curse.
No. You can because I told them it's not for kids. So, but then they just send me, I guess, just to cover themselves. I don't know. Yeah. I've seen worse on YouTube that they probably don't get a letter, but whatever. But I you know, needless to say, you know, you are an awesome person, and you know, you deserve the flowers, and I'm hoping, you know, like, I know you do a lot of media stuff. We're not going to get into who you work for and stuff like that. But, you know, I appreciate you inviting me to your place of work, because that was just going into your world and seeing that, and seeing your interaction with the people. And it was like, everyone that I saw that met you, because I'm a very observative person. Everybody I saw that met you, you could tell like they genuinely liked you. Even if it was just a split second. Oh, hey, Miles, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? It's not like, hey, Miles. Oh, hey. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, God. And you got your little Arab friend with you. with his little Arab wife. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, my God, okay. You know, everybody was like, oh, hey, Miles, what's up? And you just like, oh, you know, I'm going to go over here. And you're like, oh, they're like, oh, cool, you know, whatever. And it was amazing to see you in your element, and going through all those things, and you even like we even sat in with you while you were doing your thing, and you were just like, yeah, check, and they're just like, hey, Miles.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's infectious, man. Here's my plug. If you switch to Anchor, it's sponsored by Spotify. You can the music that you use in your episode can actually be applied to the episode and properly credited. Right. So switch to Anchor now, or contact them for more information.
Yo, gotta do what you gotta do, bro. You gotta do what you gotta do.
The only way that would have been better if it would have been your voice.
That's funny. It's funny, man, because you talked about like my voice, man, and you know, I'm actually trying to like start to get into like voiceover work. Because of what it is, where it is that I work, and you know how I check in, this, that, and the other. Yeah, I actually got voiceover work out of that. Oh, you know, yo, it was crazy. This woman, she hunted me down. She was like, I want the guy who, the last person I talked to that, you know, checks me in. I want him. And then boom, she sent me a script, and you know, next thing you know, I was like, yo, I'm gonna go to a studio. I'm gonna do this, and she was like, yo, just use voice notes. She's like, voice notes is fine. And I was like, I went, really? Mm-hmm. Yo, and I went to voice notes, and I laid it down for her, and she uses it for a show. And actually, I spoke to her today, and she was like, yo, I got to talk to you. I have to talk to you. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, I'm here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, cool. That's tough. You know what I mean? So we, just so I'm trying to like go back to my radio days, and
you should. You should.
Yo, it was so crazy. Yo, I mean, I don't want to say I squandered radio, but when you're like 20, 21, 22, and girls are calling you up, and they're like, oh, we love your voice. We're like, word, where you at? I'm just saying.
It's the booty tape voice.
Yeah, you're like, yo, coming over? Like, it's so wild, bro, man. It's just so crazy. Like,
that's amazing.
They say the youth is wasted on the youth, or some crazy thing. Like you don't get it until it's gone, really. You know what I mean? Like what the opportunity was. So and just even let you know, I'm thinking about a podcast too. But Yeah. So I might, call on you.
You should.
I bought the Zoom H6. You know what I mean?
You should. Holler at me.
I bought a couple of microphones or whatever, but it's also I don't want to. I'll tell you the name offline or whatever, but but it's just kind of like what we're doing right here.
Why not?
I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Not?
And it's
definitely.
No competition. I just feel like everybody's got a voice, right?
Everybody,
you know
definitely.
I mean? And like I said, I love Just Another Podcast. It's so clever to me, yo, because you're just like, what can I call it? Yo, man, Just Another Podcast, man. Like everybody got a podcast, everybody got one, but yeah, this is just another one.
Yeah.
I think that has a catch, a flow, and everything. You know what I mean? So yeah, man, just keep doing your thing. This is dope.
I appreciate you,
and I appreciate the opportunity to just talk.
No doubt.
That's all I'm just talking right now.
That's what I try to provide. Somewhere everybody's comfortable and tell their stories and stuff. Yeah. And you've told an amazing story tonight. Do you have any last words, my brother?
Here's my shameless plug, Righteous Music Media LLC. All social media platforms. It's either Righteous Music or Miles Anthony Williams. You know what I'm saying?
Righteous Media Music.
No,
Righteous Music Media.
that's always the thing. Now, it's all good.
Righteous Music Media.
Yo, bro, when me and my boy first named the company, we kept spelling righteous wrong.
You got the H?
No, we would go RIGHTOUS. We would
with the E.
So then in order to remember it, we would go righteous.
Righteous.
That's how we remembered on the righteous. Righteous.
Oh man, that's dope.
You always spelled it wrong, so I get it. Yeah, man. Like the social medias, got a lot of things coming up. You know what I mean? With just doing a whole bunch of stuff, man. Like you said, you were talking about the hustle and it's having so many. You know what I mean? Just trying to diversify the portfolio, working with jazz artists, working with hip hop artists, working with R&B artists. Like I told you, the podcast, doing joint ventures, consulting. You know what I mean? Just like I said, to help people get to where it is that they want to be, doing the voiceover thing. I'm kind of like looking down, like I'm thinking, but I'm actually reading notes.
Oh, do what you gotta do.
You know what I mean? Thinking about, I was like, wow, I wrote that down. Thinking about an internet radio station. You know what I mean? Just because, music is my thing.
Right.
I love music, and it's I just, like we spoke earlier, music that was saying something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm older, but I'm not like old. Like people think I'm crazy when I say I like Cardi B. You know what I mean? I like the style. I like her voice. Her rhymes are raunchy as all get out. I don't know if you saw that video.
But she's real though. I mean, and she's from the, the quote unquote, the dirt. So she understands, like, there's no ego when it comes to her, in a sense of she I'm pretty sure I saw her at a strip club in the Bronx, and not like Sin City or something like that. Like, it was one of the like low key hole in the wall spots.
Sue's Rendezvous?
No, Sue's is in Yonkers.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm delving too much.
Yo, man, you know where all these strip clubs is at, dude?
Listen, man.
He's running around.
If you do your podcast, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story. For sure. But no, I mean, she's of it. I mean, and she's a people's champion to me. I love it. And personally, they could say whatever they want about her, but her money's good in my book. She's from the block. They say Jenny from the block, but Cardi B is really from the block. Like from the struggle of it, from the send a note to the bodega just to borrow food, and I'll pay you when I get my money kind of block. You know what I mean? Like she's from that, and kudos to her. I'm proud and happy for her. Like, she's a millionaire. She should be a millionaire. That's the American dream.
Absolutely. And what I was going to even say about her was like, people talk about like her lyrics and raunchy, and, they talk about, and she says, I make music for adults. I don't make music for kids. And then I don't know if you saw the video when her daughter came into the room when she was lip syncing or singing her own song, one of her own raunchy songs. And when her daughter came in, she turned it off immediately. People started kind of like, trying to clown her, like, but it's like, nah,
she's not the one. But she bad, yeah.
But she's a good mom. She turned off the raunchy. She don't want my daughter listening to shit. Maybe like, other people's daughters could listen. Is that really her responsibility?
No, it's not.
It's not really her responsibility to monitor what your kids listen to.
Right.
But people, you like to say, well, her message should be different. It could be different, but there's a time and place for everything, man.
I agree.
Pornhub is in a freaking multi-billion-dollar business because people aren't watching it. You know what I'm saying? It's
very true.
It's like
very true.
Violence sells, and people are enthralled with it. You know what I mean? It's up to you to figure it out for what it is, what's best for you and yours. But yeah, I think that's all my plugs, man. You know what I'm saying? M&N Consulting. Oh, the pictures. See, look at that. The pictures that you performed was done by my man Kelbo. You know what I mean?
Those are amazing pictures, by the way. Those are dope.
Appreciate it.
Those are dope.
He had this vision, and I just went with it. It's just like that. You know what I mean? He's like, I went to. I was like, sure, why not? You know what I mean? Like, why say no? Like, and then I think I got a great deal out of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Let me just shout out a couple of people. Just a couple of people.
No, do what you gotta do.
Staccato Management, my business partner, Dahlia. The Tri-Groove Music Festival, which is coming. It's Calvin, Eric, and Dahlia and myself. That's my man Peter Wayne. Peter Wayne, who's doing some fabulous things, just started his own record label. Him and I'm giving him props because him and I wrote this song together, and I basically signed into ASCAP for the first time, like maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I got the first ASCAP payment. I couldn't believe it for a song that me and him co-wrote. And it wasn't a lot of money, but it was money. And I was like,
Now you frame that. You take a picture of that, and that's a big deal, bro.
Yeah, that was
amazing.
I was like, wow, I got money from a song that I wrote, something that I've been chasing, for a long time, I did sing background on OC's album. Remember OC?
Yes, West Coast rapper.
Well, he had an album called Jewels. He had an album called Jewels or whatever, and we sang background on that. So that was my first album credit. You know what I mean? So that like there's so much more to talk about. I don't want to bore people, But yeah, like I said, man, I appreciate this opportunity to be able to talk, and have fun, and that you look at my stories and something with value. Sometimes, like sometimes in the struggle, or in the come up, as they say, like you and I coming up, it's hard to find people to support. Like you were saying, it's like, and I don't call them haters or whatever the case is. It's that people don't support. A lot of the time I call them sheep. About supporting when other people validate you. You know what I mean? Like you can't be the one, like you could be like, yo, to yourself, I really like that. But then when you say to somebody else, well, is that good? It's like, whether or not they think it's good if you really like that.
There you go.
Then embrace what it is that you like. But people are afraid and, all that kind of stuff. But, it's cool. We still grinding. We out here.
We out here.
We out here. JustHek. We out here.
Oh, man.
Like Puff said, we ain't going nowhere. Right?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Miles Anthony Williams of Righteous Music Media.
My man.
All right. I appreciate you for coming on. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, man.
This has been Just Another Podcast. I have been JustHek. It's Miles Anthony Williams. Take care. Have a great night. And we will see you soon. You You will see him definitely. You're gonna see him somewhere. I know you're gonna see him somewhere. You'll see me on YouTube probably next week, but you're gonna see him somewhere very soon, everywhere. Okay. Take care, y'all. Have a good night.
Peace, y'all. Thanks for listening.
To the Syracuse huddle, and the Husky cheerleaders who have made the trek up from Stores. Obviously, I would think you look for Gamble here, but also a guy you might have to watch out for is Jeff King, because he can be effective at the foul line.
Well, you almost got to take what shows, depending on what the defense does, Joe. You don't want to force. You want your key guys. I would say